Quarterbacks, draft crushes, and Seahawks news is the name of the game today. And there's been no shortage of news. There's been no shortage of speculation about quarterbacks. And Mitch has got us some of his defensive draft crushes. It's going to start our draft crush series. We've got some fantastic guests coming up. They're going to be talking all about their draft crushes as well. We'll be announcing them on our socials soon. But I think we're just going to get straight into this, Mitch. Let's hit the intro and then let's start talking about it. There we are, back at it again. 2 pods in 1 week, mate. That's how much news has been going on. Like we were saying, we'll try to do 1 a week in the off season. We'll start talking draft, and then the Seahawks just went and blew that idea out of the water, didn't they? So thanks, John Schneider. Thanks, Mike McDonald. Yeah. We haven't got work or anything either.
No.
Thanks everyone for joining us early, by the way.
It's nice that there seems to be a new thing every day as well, because it means that, go 2 days without podcasting and you feel like you're miles behind.
It is absolutely relentless. Thanks to the lads, the members of our Discord and viewers, people from social media that are joining us. Good evening. Thank you, Jonas. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Rich. We appreciate you guys. And anyone else who's joined us, by all means, get in the comments. Let us know what you think about what we're going to discuss tonight. So I've named this quarterbacks, draft crushes, and news, but I don't feel right talking about the quarterbacks first. I think we should talk about the news first.
Yeah.
So the news that's happened this week, for anyone who's been living under a rock, doesn't have social media, just relies on us. I'm not sure why you do that, or isn't a member of our Discord. The big news this week, obviously, we have released Tyler Lockett, DK requested a trade, and Geno got traded to the Vegas Raiders for a 3rd-round pick. And rolling on from that, the whole thing about Geno was he was looking for something in the market of 40 to 45 million, which would have put him in the top 10 earning QBs, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And the reports coming out were that we hadn't offered that much. However, today I saw something to the contrary, Mitch. Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw that too. So apparently we had offered him something in the ballpark of that, whether it was incentive driven or how obtainable it was. Let's not forget he's hit his sort of pay structure ladder for bonuses every season he's been here, I think, or at least over half of them. So I wouldn't be surprised if we were trying to get him to sign something that was the number he wanted, but he would have to play to the level that the fans were hoping he would. And the grass seems greener in Las Vegas right now, although there probably isn't much grass there, to be honest with you. Bloody
money's
desert.
Probably greener.
Yeah, the money's greener. Yeah, that's always greener.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think it does point to the fact that he's having his head turned by finishing his career potentially working with Pete or having a few years with Pete while he's there. And I get it. Like, if you have a really good rapport with a coach and you're due a renewal and it's not going great, that's an obvious direction to look. And also, supposedly we made the offer to the Raiders for Max Crosby as well. So there probably already had been this discussion that he wasn't going to get that contract that he was hoping for in terms of the way it was structured. And we've been proactive and tried to get something for him before that news broke, because you lose your leverage once a player requests, as we're finding out with DK. So
there you go. That's a bit of news for Geno. We had offered him the 45 million. We don't know about the structure of it yet, but he has decided that he wants to go and work with Pete Carroll, and we can't begrudge him of that because it was Pete who really gave him the shot and kept bringing him back to the Seahawks. So he's obviously got a lot of faith. They've got a lot of camaraderie there that built up and respect. Fair play to them. I'm happy with that. So just very quickly, we just had a comment come in, so I'll read it live. It's not a chance. So from Jay Smith, from all reports, Geno was paid last year that the Hawks stuck by their operating model and wouldn't adjust his contract. I'm not surprised Geno's team walked away from the Hawks offer. I mean, he's in the twilight of his career. You know, he's 35. Is it next month or in a couple of months? You know, if he wants to finish getting as much money as possible without having to rely on incentives, and based on how Vegas have played over the last few years, I wouldn't really want an incentive-driven contract unless Pete's going to turn it around. I can see it coming. So thanks for your comment there, Jay. Really appreciate that. And I kind of agree. The next bit of news that we had was DK. It was less news. It was more what he's sort of stated about where he wants to play. He wants to play in a sunnier climate. What's wrong with the PNW? I've been there. It's lovely. But then again, as an Englishman, the weather's exactly the same as it is here. And he wants to play for a contender. Completely understand that. You know, your sporting career is short in terms of jobs, and you want to maximize whatever you can, whether that be earnings, your profile, what you win. Fair. But then there was also a part of the report, I should have clipped it up and put it on here, saying that his head could be turned if the right financial offer was based on there. So it's like, do you want to go and win, or just want to go get paid as much as possible? Take your pick.
Well, also, if you say you want to play in a warmer climate, we're probably the 32nd or 32nd or 31st coldest climate in the league. So that basically ruled out 0 teams, didn't it?
It's like, oh, I want to go to contender. I want to go to a warmer place. Oh, I enjoy Buffalo, where they have to, you know, they have to get snow plows out on the field, and you see the fans wading through like 5 foot of snow or whatever to get to their seats. No, just no. But if DK's like, if he is adamant on leaving, I think it's time that we all sort of prepare ourselves. And, you know, if you've got a 14 jersey, treasure it, because someone else will be in it this season, possibly. Yeah. And we've had a few more comments come in, so I'll get to them in a minute. But firstly, the trade value of DK seems to have diminished. So we were expecting sort of a second and maybe a late round pick, and there was a lot of talk about getting a first pick next year. It seems like where he's at the moment, people are offering a third. That is his value, which I'm not entirely sure about. A second, based on his potential and what he can do in the right offense, I think is there or thereabouts. Seems so we drafted him in the second.
There's a certain amount of lowballing, though, I think, with, you know, we set our stall out with, we want a first and a third, reportedly. We're never getting that. Whoever trades for him is then on the hook for paying him. Otherwise, they'll lose that capital and the player. We've been in similar situations with Leonard Williams as well, where we did similar things. Let's not forget that Leonard Williams was in a contract year, and we got him for two day 3 picks, wasn't it? Or no, a day 3 pick and a day 2 pick. That's 2 picks, I know, but for someone with the track record he had of productivity, you could argue that Leonard Williams has been a more consistent performer at the highest level than DK has. Although DK has been consistent, he's not been at the level where you would hope he would have got to at this point. So we've been on the right end of that, and we've been on the wrong end of that. But you're still leveraged to pay the player once you've paid out that capital. Yeah. So we've asked for a first and a third. People are giving us on offers of a third, and negotiating experience will tell you that you're going to settle somewhere in the middle, and I still think it'll be equivalent to a second round pick, or it'll be like a third, and maybe we swap like a 6th round pick for a 4th, so like a pick swap and a third. I think something like that would be, even if it was like next year we move picks next year and get a third this year, something like that. Will be where we find ourselves settling.
Yeah, I think as well, based on Mike Mack and he just seems really averse to drama. That's not his bag. He doesn't want to, you know, have something lingering over his head. I think if the right trade, whether it's slightly lowballed, he'd probably just take it and be like, look, let's just move on. We want to get this done. They've already said they want it done before the draft, so we can at least get the draft compensation. So let's see what happens there.
There's the baggage you get on field as well with DK, which he probably wants rid of too. Let's not forget that. So it does project as a situation that will be easier for him to manage across the board. And then there's the cap that allows him the flexibility to sculpt this off season. So there's benefits outside of the draft capital.
Yeah, 100%. We've had some comments come in, so thank you to those that have come in. We really appreciate them. I'll go through them quickly before we move on. So, crikey, where do I start? Thank you so much, by the way. It's just I've got a lot of reading to do now. There is a bunch. So, Jay, just off the back of his last comment, based on all of that, I think John did the right thing to trade him. So, talking about Geno for what we could get. Mike Mack has been adamant that he wants players that are all in on football and want to be in Seattle. Couldn't agree more. No drama. People are all football and all about the Hawks. Jonas has said, how do we feel about the compensation? A third initially sounded great, but it's 92. So a borderline fourth, which is a bit disappointing. You get what you can. There's always been two camps with Geno. And I think one of the Jay's put a comment in there about saying he's a top 10 quarterback. I think Geno is a very situational quarterback. Undoubtedly, he had the talent coming out of college, but it didn't show itself in his early days in the league. He's had time to mature and do whatever, but there are a number of QBs I would put above him. So let's Mitch, you and I worked in sales, okay? If it gets to a point where you have to negotiate with someone and it becomes too much of a ball ache, just constantly, at what point do you just go, nah, I'm done. Just take this and leave? Because if your starting QB is becoming that ball ache, you're going to go, yeah, fine. Out of our confidence.
If you genuinely get the idea that he's thinking of being elsewhere, that's the key player that you need to lead on your roster. If their heart's not in it, you're better off giving the spot to someone who really has something to prove, wants to be there, is listening to everything, leads the locker room in the way you want. As soon as that player is half in, half out, I'm immediately out 100%. And the other thing is when you're negotiating and things become a little strained, you start thinking, okay, well, let's think about what it really looks like if we walk away from this. And if you look at it then with that focus, you go, do you know what? Let's just part.
Yeah, I think this, like Jay just put it there, he's hit the nail on the head. I think a third round pick for a 34-year-old quarterback who's had 3 good seasons in his career borders on a steal. You were never going to get more than the third, in his opinion. And he has caveated by saying, don't take his comments wrong. He'd still think it's Geno as a borderline top 10. Jay's got a lot of opinions on Geno. Lastly, on the Geno trade, many have bemoaned, fantastic word of bemoaned, use of bemoaned, that we've been stuck in a mediocre middle for too long. I think Geno trade makes it likely that will change this year, and he's preparing for a down year. I think you would have to be completely off your rocker to expect us to bring in another QB, which we'll talk about soon, and go, yeah, but we're gonna win the division. We're gonna go, to the NFC Championships or anything like that. This is still building. Mitch and I. How long did we say this rebuild was going to be under Mike Mack?
I expected us to go further than the first game of the playoffs within 3 years.
Yeah,
and we nearly got to the playoffs in the first. So we're on track by my own timescale.
Yeah, it's perfect. So I'll just go through the last another couple here. So 009 Armo. I
think that's Ben, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure the Seattle Seahawks Vegas edition is tempted to get as close to win now mode as possible. I mean, realistically, how long is Pete Carroll going to be there? What was it a 3 or 4 year contract he signed? I think it's just going to be, what can you do in that time? You've also got to start looking down the line of what coach is going to be coming out in the league cycle as well, and who could replace him, and how long will Pete want to do it? Because how old is he now? 70?
He's old.
Something. He's basically he's dust. Like, I love Pete, but he is old as sin, and it's like how as a sports coach at 40, I clocked myself doing like 15,000 steps yesterday up and down the sideline, and I was shattered. I imagine being Pete. He must have to have an ice bath for a day afterwards.
Especially with that running down the touchline, all that gum chewing. You must have a sore jaw after all of that.
Yes. Here we go. You guys are on this tonight. The Geno Smith DK connection was hot. DK was third in the NFL in yards before his injury. That's from Dogzilla Monster. Yeah, I'm. This is a disaster. I love that. It's a disaster with a smiley face. It's like, oh, everything's fine with the house burning down, like that meme. But I mean, every team. This is one thing that I say to everyone. Like, I very rarely buy active player jerseys because everyone moves on. Teams retool. You get a new coaching staff who you might have a superstar. And I said this in the last pod. They might have a superstar, but if he does not fit your scheme and you cannot see him succeeding, why would you keep him?
Yeah, I agree.
Brilliant. We're paying a wide receiver 25, 30 mil a year, but he doesn't touch the ball much. Instead, if you look at JSN and go, we can use him better, then that's it. Oh, and another bit of news as well. Jonas has kind of reminded us. I can't even speak. You can tell it's Sunday evening, can't you? Speaking of news, Jay Reid is back. 25 million for 3 years, a great deal, a confidence boost for Byron Murphy as his mentor is back. We said this. The player that I wanted back was Jay Reid, and especially across that D line because he can play all over. He's a fantastic mentor and a vet. That is a steal, in my opinion. We'll get back to your comments soon. Thank you so much for flooding these in. It's massive. If you are new to the channel, please, it does a huge help. If you guys want to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share us with anyone. It's absolutely fantastic. We love the community we're building as well. And speaking of the community, if you weren't sure, we do have a Discord. It is right there. The master of the Discord's there. I'm getting the pointing right today and everything. I'm doing well. And I'm on the other side of the screen. I don't know. Mitch will pop up the link for that. You can join for free, talk Hawks with us and other members of the Discord and people that you'll be mixing up with the comments here. It's a fantastic time. We're going to be talking all the way through the off season and all the way through next season as well. But Mitch, less news, more quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks. Geno's gone, we know that, which leaves us with Sam Howell.
Yeah. Yeah. Do we I'm not high anymore. Well, I was never high on Howell being relied on as QB1. I did like him as a QB2 with NFL experience. So I don't mind him being on the roster. He's cheap this year. I don't mind him staying there as QB2. But I hope we're not relying on him at all this year.
I think if he is the starter, and we'll talk about the other names that have been floated, I think we are in for a very rocky season. I imagine if you're a fantasy football player, as we are, Jonas saying, and Jaron Hall. Sorry, forgot about that. Another was the Vikings cast off. If you're a fantasy football player, just draft our running backs because they're going to get so many touches of the ball. They're going to get it with Kubiak's offense anyway. But if we've got Sam Howell at quarterback, then it's going to be run heavy anyway, even run heavier. So the names that have been floated: Sam Darnold. You know what? I'm not even going to list them. Let's just start with Sam Darnold. Mitch, give me your opinion first. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a few opinions that fly into the comments on Sam Darnold. But what's your opinion?
I don't mind Darnold. What I don't like is what we're probably going to have to pay to get that done early in free agency. I think we'll be paying the same sort of money we were paying Geno. I think we'll get a similar level of production, but albeit in different ways. And the age profile suits me better. If Geno had been 27 years old, I think people would have been slightly more forgiving and more likely to will him on to improve and do better. But people were looking at Geno as this is as good as it gets. It's only going to go downhill from here, and we're not winning. So they didn't want to see him there for the long term. Darnold, if he comes in, does a good job or a decent job, even if it was a Geno level job for the last few years, people can get behind that. And I think also if you look at Darnold, he had double the red zone touchdowns.
TDs and one more interception. I read that earlier and I was thinking, okay.
If we get back to having a solid running game and this offense functions and can put drives together consistently, if you've got a QB that can punch it in the end zone, we'll look a different team next year. Yeah. Both in the way we play and the scheme, but also, we the tip of the spear was really missing for us last year. If we get the run game going, that will contribute in the end zone, right? In the red zone. And if we get Sam Darnold contributing 75% of what he did last year in the red zone, then we'll do well. Albeit they had the league's best wide receiver as a serious decoy, and we had DK Metcalf, which we no longer have. So caveat
no, we still have him for now.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, I'm out on Darnold. Everyone had this thing about Geno where they all looked at how he did when he started his NFL career with Jets, right? Darnold did the exact same, and he has middled his way through, and purely down to an injury for JJ McCarthy this year, he started with the Vikings. And like you said, he had the best wide receiver in the game. He had a fantastic scheme, which alleviated so much pressure from him that he looked amazing. I for a year's worth of valuable production, I cannot put my faith in someone and pay them the amount of money we're going to have to. I would rather another name we'll probably mention or someone might draft. So just very quickly, let's see what the comments have said. Obviously, Jonas, Jaron Hall, he's still on the roster. Ben, mediocre for Manning, crashed the bus for Nuss. Rockman drums, no thanks on Darnold. And he'd rather start a rookie. Rich, realistically, it's going to be Darnold. Well, let's see. Gary, welcome in, Gary. Darnold is a bridge QB. He's okay until we find a quality quarterback. And Jay, you need to leave us shorter comments, dude. Sam Darnold is a step below Geno. The question is, was the Vikings' experience an indication of how good he can be with good coaching, or was it a fluke? And that is my issue with Darnold. That's where I lie. Was it a fluke? And a season is a microcosm. It's not a big enough, and you'll know this as a data man. A year in his what? How long has he been in the NFL now? 5, 6 years?
6 years, yeah.
Yeah. So 6 years. A year out of 6 years, he's under what, 15% around there or thereabouts sort of success. You talking?
If he's been in the league 6 years and he's 27, it means he got drafted as a 21-year-old in the first round to the Jets. Are we surprised that didn't look good?
Chalice straight away, isn't it?
That's literally the worst start you can have in life. Yeah. Just I'm going to be 21 years old in the NFL at the Jets. Watch me set the world alight. Like, it's not. That wasn't going to be a fairy tale, was it? Honestly. So, and the first season he had out of that situation, different player. So there's enough there for me to think he's trending upwards, and it'll be better potentially at the right franchise. If
he shows the potential that he was showing in college, then the reason he was drafted so high. I do love this comment from Jay: the Jets, where rookie QBs go to die.
Well, in their first year.
At the moment, the Jets, where all QBs go to die. It's the quarterback graveyard.
Very true.
So Darnold, I think that's a TB sort of TBC. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Another name that's been floated, and I'm going to say I like this QB, Justin Fields. I think in a QB offense, if you were to give him a solid run game, some like RPOs, you let him have some draw plays and use his feet as well with a wide receiver like JSN, who is fantastic in his breaks, get him some more slot receivers. You can have one like deep target if you need to. I think he would be brilliant. He just needs to really iron out some of the inconsistencies in his game. I think that could be done.
I think the fan base would prefer Fields over Darnold, because I think people will see a higher ceiling on Fields. But if we are looking at this as a true bridge, I'm happier with Darnold than Fields. But I take your point that it gives us an extra angle of attack with Fields. But yeah. Not for,
I know there's a lot of
mine.
people that are out on him. Jay's one. I'm not going to put your other comment up, Jay. Yeah. But I know there's a lot of people out there, and I completely understand why they are, because he's been inconsistent at best. But if you're going to lose football games by being mediocre for a year with a bridge QB, at least try and be exciting with it and show what you're trying to do. Then when you draft or can sign a QB that can play that scheme, you know as a fan what to expect with an elevated level of play.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just very, very, very quickly, Ilona, hi. Thank you very much for joining us. One of our followers on Insta as well there, so thank you. But yeah, and another name I'm going to throw out there, and I love this guy. I think everyone who follows me on social knows I love this guy. Is it time to bring Minshew Mania back to Washington? If you're looking for the ultimate bridge QB who does the majority of things right, nothing spectacular, is by all accounts a decent leader and a good guy, has connections to the Seattle area already, Gardner Minshew. Oh, quick, someone. I need to timestamp. I'm going to timestamp that so I can create an emoji of that on our Discord, like I've got one of me doing this.
We don't need two of the same, do we, though? So...
No, we need one of me and one of you. Yeah, so there you go. Mitch needs the Josh facepalm meme right now.
Yeah, it's not for me, the Minshew thing. But hey, I do acknowledge the fact that this could be a find a bridge QB in free agency and draft someone. So depending on who we draft, that could be fine, I guess. But
I love everyone.
I'm far less enamored with that than you are, I think.
For me, it's less the QB, it's more the guy, because I'd love to have a beer with the guy. I think he'd be so entertaining. I'm not saying that he's a fantastic quarterback by any stretch of the imagination. I think for Vegas, he held up his end of the bargain, to be the bridge QB so they could find someone. Richard, I'd rather an actual Gardner than have Minshew. Okay, so Minshew's a no. Thank you very much, chat. I'll just get back in my box. All right, I'm going to do one last one, because we could talk about who we're going to draft QB wise, but we've got a whole series of draft crushes that we'll be able to talk about some of those with.
True.
I'll compose myself here, because I have a feeling the chat will get flooded.
Oh no,
Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, okay, fine.
Who do you think I was going to say?
Jimmy Garoppolo. Although Aaron Rodgers isn't necessarily much better than that.
Handsome Jimmy or Aaron Rodgers. So I would rather, and obviously we're a clean pod, so I will not swear, but I would rather SH1T in my hands and clap than have Aaron Rodgers anywhere near a Seahawks uniform. I despise the man. He is a poison now. He is far too big for his boots. Think he is a football team. If anyone brought him in, even if it was, I would bring him in, we'll get Devontae as well, I wouldn't care. I would not care. That the man needs to be out of the league, and any organization that takes him on now have basically signed their own death warrant. They will have a mutiny on the roster. The fans will not. They'll all expect to have A-Rod of 6 years ago with the Packers, and what they'll get is this pale husk of a man who spends his off season in a darkened cave high on peyote and seeing hearing colors and seeing sounds. No. Yeah.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. I'm getting spammed on Discord here. Let me turn that off. I hear that coming through.
I was going to say,
people talking about your Minshew comment on our Discord. They're going wild.
Just, you could always mention it in the comments, guys. That's what we're all here for. Massive thanks for. I love the fact that as soon as I mentioned Rodgers, we've got straight away. So, chopping fanatics totally agree. Jay, amen. Aaron Rodgers is toxic. The Hawks own rundown, boys. Welcome in. He also sucks now too. So what's the point? True. Rich, yeah, keep Rodgers away. Jay. I don't know if I can entertain Jay's comment here because he talks about Kirk Cousins.
Well, it's an option. We could touch on it. I wouldn't hate Cousins. It's on a level with Darnold for me, but
I can't stand him.
I struggle. Yeah, I struggle.
It's the most boring quarterback in the league. You could go from toxic, sleeps in a darkened cave, Aaron Rodgers, who I can't stand, or you could go to Kirk Cousins, who he's too boring and bland for me to not stand. He's just a meh. If someone mentions him to me, I go meh.
Okay, very quickly then, before we move on, if you were to tier these three scenarios from one being worst to third being less worst, less worst.
That was fantastic English. So for all of our American viewers, we are actually English and it is our native language.
I promise you. Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, or Darnold. Those are your three. Actually, no, we'll put Cousins in there because it's relevant. So Cousins, Russ, or Rodgers. Least worst to worst. Because they're all horrible.
That is like, oh, would you like arsenic? Would you like ricin? Or would you like just a swift beheading? Which is it? Cake or death? Oh God, why'd you put me on the spot? The least worst. It's gonna have to be Cousins, but it'd be the most boring brand of football we could ever watch. middle of the ground, middle of the pack. It'd have to be Russ. And then the worst of the worst, get in the bin worst, is Rodgers.
Yeah, that's exactly how I'd put it as well. But none of those are great situations for anything really. But
yeah. So yeah, that's it. So I think we'll leave the quarterback stuff there because we're obviously gonna talk about it. I think we do have Bryce from the Hawks on Rundown is going to come and join us for a Draft Crush episode, and as a quarterback man himself and coach and offensive coordinator, he may have a couple of draft crushes that we've not discussed. But I just want to say again, thank you so much everyone for joining us. We love having you guys in the comments. The interaction is what keeps us going and keeps us doing this. So again, feel free to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you can join us for every future pod. And in case you weren't aware, we are the UK Seahawks official podcast. We're still very proud to have been asked to do this because we're both proud card carrier members. You could become a card carrier member of the UK Seahawks for £12 for an individual, £20 for family membership. I do apologise. I don't have the currency conversion for the US. But if you are outside the UK, it's £5 per person for the stash that you're going to get. You get access to our meet and greets, our meetups, which we've got one coming up, which we'll talk about. You get a fantastic selection of goodies. You can be put into a draw for game day field passes, 10% discount at the pro shop, and much, much more. And last season, we got some fantastic throwback goodies. We got our customary wristband and patch. You get your membership card, and last year was an RFD card, so I'm waiting to see what we get this year. And we have our meetup at Admiral Woods in Glasgow on the 3rd of May. I'm booked up. The annual leave is booked. I put my leave request in with my manager who lives in Scotland, and he said, "What's this for?" I said, "Oh, I'm going to Glasgow for a weekend." His response was, "Why?" Question mark, exclamation mark, and agreed, I guess. So I was like, "I'm gonna have a great time. I don't care what you say." So yeah, you can come and join us. That's £5 per person, and Mitch and I are going to be there from Friday. We'll be going for something to eat, some beers, and then we'll probably walk around the city on the Saturday, and then we've got the meetup where we can meet everyone else. And we've just ordered a lovely lot of stickers as well to give everyone. So you could be rocking a 12 Talk sticker. And Seahawk of the Month's back. You can check your inbox. You'll be able to vote for your Seahawk of the Month, whether it's someone that raises money for charity or raises awareness of the Seahawks throughout their community. Respond to your chapter president. They'll collate it all and send it into Central Council. And as always, we're very proud to be supporters of the Robbing Cancer Trust. Up above my head here and over. Damn it, I pointed the wrong way here. Special shout out to Toby, who is the chairman of the Robbing Cancer Trust. He is going to be running 500,000 or 500,000. I'm not going to put that on him. 500 kilometers dressed as a ball bag, or as we're going to Glasgow soon, a ball bag.
Ball bag.
You're welcome. And the goal is to save lives. So Toby is going to be running that, and his aim is to raise £240,000 to create some life-saving initiatives, talks, campaigns, all to address and show people how important it is to start talking bollocks and make sure you're not overreacting. So thank you very much. There you go, the Robbing Cancer Trust. Mitch, should we get onto your bit?
Let's do it. I can't
Your
wait.
defensive draft crushes. And this bit, for those of you who are new to the pod, is where I hand the reins over to my partner in crime, because he is our draft guru. By all means, you guys can put us. You can tell us what you think as well. But Mitch, explain this and let the good people know.
Yeah. So obviously, the layout here is going to spoil what I'm going to talk about, in about 50 minutes' time when we get to the bottom. So feel free to have a little browse, and if you want to pull up any websites where you can have a little look yourself, go right ahead. But I'll start from the top. And basically, the format here is just a good, better, or best, and it considers what we'd have to use in terms of a draft pick, which round, how good the scheme fit would be, the level of talent, and just how well it would, what kind of pick would it be for the Seahawks if we took that player. So top there in the safety category, we've got Nick Emanori as the best safety we could take in this draft, and I don't think that's a secret. I do think he's definitely going to be considered if he's on the board at 18. Obviously, out of South Carolina, he's man zone, slot nickel safety. He is an absolute ball hawk, insanely quick, really good athletically. And he's got everything you'd want. Coached by Cam Chancellor's old coach, so there's that. And to be honest, there's things he does that will remind you of him. But it's kind of like watching Cam Chancellor, but in fast forward, because he's got gears. This guy, so. That's an exciting best case scenario at safety. The better option, so the middle option, I'm actually going to do this the other way around when we get to the next ones. Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame. Basically the same kind of profile in terms of the areas that he excels in, but not quite the level of athlete that Nick Emanori is, and you're likely to get him with a day 2 pick, probably a late second, or mid second maybe. Elite ball skills again, converted from wide receiver. If Pete Carroll was still in charge, I would be even more confident that this would be someone we picked up. So Xavier Watts, definitely one to keep an eye on. I think he would be a really good fit. And then the player that would be a good pick for me, day 3, picking up Penn State's Jalen Reed, a really well-rounded prospect. Again, plays the same sort of areas, can play in the box, can drop deep into coverage, above average athlete, and extremely instinctive. And I've mentioned this before with prospects. I always think when someone doesn't quite have that top-tier athleticism, they have to be really coachable and and have the right instincts to be there where they need to be, not because of athletic ability, but because they read the game really, really well. Because you're a step behind if you're not quick and you don't read the game. You won't get to the next level if both of those boxes aren't checked. So Jalen Reed would be a really good value pick if we were looking to add to the safety room. How do you feel about drafting safeties, the position group? Do you think we will pick one?
The Mike Mac defensive system requires a lot of disguise and sort of moving pieces. Obviously, we tried the 3 safety set when we had Jenkins back. I think the 2 safeties that are starting in Love and Bryant will continue to improve. I think Love's already at a point where he can be classed as one of the best safeties in the league, in my opinion, for what he does and the leadership he brings. I think Bryant will just keep elevating, playing next to him. If you're looking for a change up from what they offer, and I've thought about this since you've sent me the Nick Emanwari stuff, you're looking for a safety that could potentially come into the box, play as sort of a sub linebacker potentially, or a weak side, anyone who can sort of split between that sort of level of the field. Someone like Emanwari, I think, would be fantastic because you could put him in as a safety and then you can bring him forward to play the linebacker position and just erase tight ends where needs be. And the same as you could start him as a linebacker and have him drop into a safety position, and he's just going to help cover that. I don't think it's the most pressing need, but I think if Emanwari's there at 18, there's a few people who don't think he is. So Gary pointed out that he might not be there at 18. We might have to trade up. I think if we have the opportunity to draft someone like him, unless there is a certified blue chip top 10 talent that has just dropped down because people have seen value in other positions, I think Mike McDonald would want that type of player. Look at what I did with Kyle Hamilton. Made Kyle Hamilton a superstar. And by having a safety like that, it would free up Spoon to be able to do more. Because even though he's playing nickel, I always see his job as a nickel being very much more like a safety, if you know what I mean. Even though he acts as that nickel corner, I find him covering that area of the field a lot more as well. So free up Spoon to do what he does best, having a safety like that who can absolutely bang people, fantastic in coverage, great hands. I don't see it as a top priority, but if he was there at 18 and he was the best option, I would not be angry at all if we took him.
It would excite me. I think unless someone had dropped that should never have dropped, I'd be disappointed for us to not pick Ebanori, to be honest. But but that's my good, better, and best options, I think, for the Seahawks. And I think the thing to note there, you'll see under roll, all of those players can play deep. They can play in the box. They've got multiplicity with where you can put them. That's the kind of player I think you add to what we've got in our safety room. So those are the 3. That's why they were my good, better, and best options there.
I like it.
Should we talk linebackers?
Always.
Okay, well, I'm going to do this the opposite way around this time because that didn't make sense the way I did it. So a good option at linebacker for us, I think, getting Barrett Carter in the middle of day 2, so maybe high 3rd pick. I know we don't necessarily have a high 3rd pick, but around in that region, you'd be getting a linebacker that can play in coverage, an extremely capable blitzer, thumps into tackles, gets sideline to sideline really well, and has a really highly polished skill set. You wouldn't get the I mean, I know you don't necessarily need long arms and things as a linebacker, but he is just a shade over 6 foot. His measurables aren't quite there, and I think for a player of his talent, the production at Clemson wasn't quite where people expected it to be.
Well, this year it wasn't.
No, and I think that's probably why you've seen him projected as a 1st-round pick or early 2nd-round pick, and now you're looking at a late 2nd or early 3rd for Barrett Carter. But if we picked him up, we'd get a highly versatile linebacker. So I think that would be a good pick if we took him on day 2. Carson Schwarzenegger is a guy that's climbed boards fast this season. Coming out of UCLA, would be brilliant in the Mike or the Will. an exceptional blitzer. Superb technique, plays with a lot of disguise. He's a consistent. He creates consistent pressure, and he mixes it really well with tight ends and linemen for a linebacker, which is great because generally when you see blitzes coming, you try to find a way to get your defensive back or your linebacker free and in a gap. But he can actually beat a man as well along that O line. So a really intriguing chess piece for Mike Mack if we were to pick him up. And he's got prototypical size. He's well over 6 foot, long armed. You know, he's really bit of a unicorn. But he lacks some strength. I think his bench at the combine was something like the 23rd percentile. And I do tend to like to see some thick arms on my linebackers, not feel like you're just going to get ran through, or I would like to see some tree trunks on.
Give him a year in it. Give him a year in a pro, like conditioning and sort of diet program, and that'll come. So that's one of those where if you're drafting him, you're going to be looking at what he can do, not what he hasn't got. You're going to go, he lacks size or lacks strength. What can we do with that? Well, we've got strength and conditioning coaches. We've got dietitians. When he gets drafted, he can employ someone to put him on a diet that will help him increase his muscle mass. So,
and that's the thing when you see a negative against a prospect, if it's something that you can fix without it needing to be a coaching thing necessarily, or a trait that they've got or a bad habit, that's literally something that, like you say, the weight room and a good program will fix. So mid day 2 could even go early or mid second round. I think proper prospect and really exciting.
The only thing you can't fix is size or height, unless you're going to put blocks in their cleats. So that's where, like, Barrett Carter being a little bit small. But then if you're a good coach, you can then look at that and go, how else can I use you? How can I utilize?
How tall was Bobby Wagner? Because he's not the tallest.
I want to say he was about 6'1", 6'2". Like, chat, if anyone knows, like, get on Google, let us know.
I'd be surprised if he was bigger than 6'1", which looks a lot like the build that Barrett Carter's got currently. So maybe I'm making a mountain out of a molehill there. Jalen Walker would be my dream linebacker choice, and I think a lot of people have. There you go, 6 foot. So in fact, Barrett Carter's a shade bigger than Bobby. So what do I know? Jalen Walker is a serious player, and I promised Jonas I'd also mention Jihad. Jihad Campbell?
Jihad Campbell.
Well? Yeah, Jihad Campbell, because you put the two of them side by side in the profile of the player and the talent, and it does match up really similarly. So Jalen Walker, we'll call this Jalen Walker or Jihad Campbell as the best option at linebacker. And you can see there I've put Mike, Will, or Sam and Blitzer as the role. He can play anything you would ask a linebacker to do, and he's a true game-changing defender with great multiplicity. You can move him around everywhere. Think Micah Parsons when you think about those two. Really is as accomplished a skill set as you could hope for. I don't necessarily think he falls to 18, but I think the chances of Nick Emanori or Jalen Walker being there at 18, one of the two, is a lot more likely. So, yeah. How do you feel about our linebacker room? Obviously, Tyrese Knight did well. We're hoping Ernest Jones returns.
I think with the amount of cap space we have now, if we cannot give the man who transformed our defense mid-season into a functional unit a contract that is worth him staying in Seattle for 4 to 5 years, then I'd genuinely be wondering what they're doing. I think he needs to stay. I think Knight will carry on developing, playing alongside
a proper
Jones.
Yes, Jones, yeah.
And then if you bring in a young linebacker, I mean, we did have a comment as well from Jay, who asked about Notre Dame linebacker Jack Kaiser. I don't know if you've done any scouting on Jack. Yep.
I like him. I like. Yeah, I mean, in that good column where I put Barrett Carter, there is a bunch of players that I think their stock's fallen, but they're still highly polished, and he's definitely one of them. I've got a lot of draft crushes this year in the linebacker room. I've mentioned Francisco
You love the
Mariota.
linebacker.
Yeah, Francisco Mariota out of Miami, I think is brilliant. I really like Damas Johnson. I like Smile Mondon. I like Danny Stutzman. There's a bunch that could come in and rival Tyrese Knight for his starting spot. Give him, run for his money. So, yeah.
Linebacker wise, I'd probably like to see us spend a day 2 on it. Oh, not a day. Yeah, second round, definitely.
Yeah.
Because if we're going to get say an Emanwari or someone who's top 10 talent who's dropped down, or we're going to look for someone, maybe a wide receiver if DK goes, because we're going to need a top tier talent there if we don't sign in free agency. Then with our second round pick, I'd be looking for a linebacker, the best possible linebacker available to fit this scheme.
And that's the key point for me, I think.
Yeah. I love Barrett Carter. Yeah, I love Barrett Carter. I said this last year, and then obviously he went back into college. But I think he's fantastic. I can see him being a Bobby Wagner-esque player within after his first year. Jalen Walker, I think he'll be gone. That's the only issue I see with that. He might be one of those players that will be gone before he comes to us.
Well, just one thing I'll add in. Look back to I know the draft looked very different to how it looked last year. In fact, this year's draft, especially in the first round, looks fairly unique. It took a long time for a defensive player to come off the board last year. So I can't imagine lots and lots of teams picking another offensive player high if they did that exact same thing last year. Teams do tend to sort of
chop and change
from one to the other. So the best defensive players in this draft, I mean, there are some right at the top of the board, the Mason Grahams and the Abdul Carters that are likely to go top 5. There will be a run on defensive players early. But I like the idea of, I like our chances of getting a Jihad Campbell or a Jalen Walker or an Emanori. And at the end of the day, if all 3 of those are gone, there'll be some very good cornerbacks that are still on the board. So BPA could well be a defensive player for us.
Yeah.
So defensive line, if you're ready to move.
Oh, I'm always ready to move for the big boys.
Okay, so let's talk big boys. I've rolled edge into this a little bit. Rather than having 5 categories, I thought I'd roll D-line into linebacker. Plus, we've already talked about some blitzing linebackers and things in the linebacker category. So a good option. I've put Kenneth Grant as a good option, and there'll be people that are sat there that really, really like Kenneth Grant. And if you're going to get him, we'd need to use our 18th on him. I do think he'll be there when we pick. We like Michigan. I like predicting a staking Michigan players.
Oh, could this be the three-peat?
But I don't. But I'll tell you why I don't think it's Grant. I think spending a first-round pick on a player that's likely to play nose, and I know we did that last year, but Murphy's never going to stay at nose.
Yeah.
Picking Kenneth Grant to play nose for us, I just don't think nose tackle's a big enough need for us to use that pick when there'll be players falling to our 18th pick. We'd love to have him. He'd improve us no end. Honestly, it would be amazing. It'd be great for Murphy to have someone else double teamed on that line.
Wasn't it the other week when you were waxing lyrical about him?
And I still will about the level of talent and the impact he would have. I just don't know whether our 18th pick wants to go on a nose tackle with so many needs on the roster. That's where I am. It's just we're going to miss this boat because someone else will value that more than we do at this moment in time.
Well,
but just to carry on. What were you going to say?
I was going to say we just had a good comment coming in again there, just saying I don't think Grant. I don't think it's Grant with us spending that much on Jay Reed either.
Yeah, no, that's true. And when we look at the next 2 players I'm going to talk about as well, it's going to really the comment about Jay Reed's going to become even more prevalent because Tylik Williams from Ohio State is my next player. So this is the better option. taking him early on day 2 would give us a 3-tech defensive end that could also play as a defensive tackle as well. So you've got that versatility. He's got the perfect size. They say the sweet spot for defensive end in the league, especially if you're playing as a 3-tech, is about 6'3" and about 315 to 330, somewhere in there. If you can, but only if you can move at that weight and still be explosive. And he does exactly that. Perfect size, elite athlete, edge setter, freakish strength and speed for his size, and highly versatile was what I've written there in my description. So Tyler Williams would be a better option for us because he'd give us that, that multiplicity of being able to move him around. With Jaron Reed coming back, Jaron Reed's a really nice comp for the kind of player, although I think athletically Tyler Williams is streets ahead.
Yeah, I always like when you have your descriptions and you just put freak in there.
Well, I can expand on that. Yeah, Jay Smith mentioned that he thought 3-tech was a DT. It is, and it's so scheme dependent. I mean, we played 3-man bear front for a couple of years, and they are essentially defensive tackles. But a lot of the time, they'll be mentioned as defensive ends because they can play on the edge of a 4 as well. I mean, I've put there 3-tech defensive end and DT, but realistically, I should have put defensive end DT because the 3-tech kind of is irrelevant if you play in both spots. But yeah. And best option, Josiah Stewart, again, Michigan. I'm putting my eggs in the Michigan basket here. It served me well in the past. So again, midday 2 here. Josiah Stewart's an interesting one because often when you see a guy that can play as like an outside linebacker or a true edge or a defensive end, that versatility means you're usually not a true master in any one of the positions. You kind of spread across a lot of things, but he's got all the moves. You'll see him ripping, spinning. He's got all the moves you would want to see, and he plays multiple positions. High IQ, proper leader as well. Really sort of leads the team and communicates really well. He's brilliant at countering as well. When it looks like he's beaten or his initial moves don't work, he's always got a plan B, and he rips them off so quickly. It's really good to watch. And also dropped into coverage into the hook quite often at Michigan and did it quite well. So, I mean, we saw Leonard Williams dropping into the hook and batting down a ball and taking it to the house last year. That's the kind of thing you can expect to see from Josiah Stewart. To be honest, is quite comfortable there. Only issue is we drafted a smaller defensive tackle last year. He's also he's 6'1". I think he's 6'1", 330. So he's not got that ideal size. And I think if you keep taking undersized DTs, you start to create a bit of a problem.
Yeah,
so,
the length at the line as well is a big thing, especially when you're looking at batted passes. That's one thing that we aren't fantastic at. And you see so many teams out there who, I mean, what was it against Buffalo? The amount of batted passes, like when we played against them, like was it this year, last year? It's all blurring into one now. My brain's just turned into mush. It was this season, yeah, and it was just batted pass after batted pass after batted pass, and I thought that's what happens when you get an absolute monster of a lineman who can just get over the guard or the tackle and just put a massive paw up there. And I think that's one thing we're lacking. We do have Mike Morris on the roster, who could be that guy, but he's gradually fading into obscurity.
Yeah,
so excited about him after you called that.
The one that got away.
Yeah, we'll see.
Move on to corners. Yeah, so this excites me a little bit. I've picked you again, like the safety room. You'll see the role there. I've picked 3 guys that do the exact combination, the same combination of things. So all of them I've got down here as outside man press cornerback, and it's no secret that at the line of scrimmage, Rick Woolen was getting beaten immediately and was having to rely upon His
Speed.
athletic traits, his athletic traits to bridge the gap in technique and physicality. Now, all of the three prospects I'm about to mention excel at the line and are man press quarterbacks. So, starting with a good option, Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame. I really like him, and when you again, I don't want to pick on Reek too much here because I've really enjoyed what we've had with him, and the highlight reel. But imagine a guy that doesn't get beaten at the line in press coverage, shows great route recognition, processes the game really well, and is an athletic 6'3" corner with really long arms as well. Again, if Pete was still here, he'd be licking his lips if Benjamin Morrison was there. Apart from the fact that he's not a day 3 pick because he loved the diamond in the rough. But Reek often got behind because of those factors. You know, he was getting beaten, didn't have the experience, hadn't had that many snaps in college. Playing corner, was beaten in many ways and had to rely on athletic traits. This guy doesn't necessarily have the athletic traits, but he'll be one step ahead and won't lose initially. So just a stickier way early in the snap to defend, and I really like it. So early day 2 is the projection there for Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame. Darian Porter, I really like Darian Porter, but there is a caveat in there that you're going to hate. So unbelievable athlete, bad in run defense. Have we seen this before? We've seen this before. However, there is a reason I've put him here as a potential Reek Woolen competition on the roster, and that is the instincts, the IQ are unbelievable. And it harps back to what I said about Jalen Reed, the safety. If you've not quite got those athletic traits and that athletic prowess at college level, and you still make it and get projected as a day 2 pick, you have to be insanely polished and extremely coachable. And he looks every bit the part. So Darian Porter out of Iowa State, I think would be an upgrade on Reek Woolen immediately, and would start on day 1 in the NFL.
We all know my feelings on Reek. Anyone who's tuned into this pod long enough, so I'd be up for any upgrade.
And then this would be probably the cream of the crop for us. Azariah Thomas. Sorry if I've butchered that, but I'm pretty sure it's Azariah Thomas. Again, outside man press cornerback, absolutely outstanding technician. Superb at using the sideline as an extra defender. Puts wide receivers where he wants them to be, runs the routes for them. One of the most insanely sticky corners you'll ever see. If anyone comes away from this pod and wants to go and watch a few highlights and see something special, check how sticky Azariah Thomas is for Florida State. Extremely physical. The one caveat is he ran the 40 in a very close time to our very own Kobe Bryant, and that worries me slightly because that to me sounds like it might be someone we put in the nickel if he can't compete with speedy wide receivers, or it might be one where some games he'll play the majority of his snaps on the perimeter, and then games where we play faster speedster sort of wide receivers, he plays more in the center of the field. But honestly, he is a magnificent player, and if it wasn't for the speed, I'd say top 15 pick in this draft. It's the one thing that doesn't project well at the next level, and it's the only mark. It's the only real mark against him, I think. But Florida State's Azariah Thomas is a brilliant corner.
Before we wrap this up, I'd probably got another 5-10 minutes. So, corner I see is something that we need. I think Reek has run his race. He's proved that he's not. He's good when it comes to the closing down aspect with his his speed, but the line and his tackling are substandard for an NFL cornerback. If you're saying Azariah Thomas is that sticky cornerback who doesn't get beat at the line of scrimmage, fantastic. But again, you have basically mentioned what makes my bum squeak about Kobe Bryant at corner, the fact that he isn't quick and he will get burned. He can be as sticky as he wants, but all it's going to take is an elite route runner, your Tyreek Hills, your Jeffersons, anyone like that, your Jamar Chases, even a Cooper Kupp who can lose people and put them in a blender from time to time. If that's the case, he's erased from the game.
Yeah,
that's my only issue with corners like this. You need to have that perfect blend of being fantastic at the line if you're in man, being a good tackler, having some good flexion in your hips to be able to turn and track a ball and to sort of move with a wide receiver, and you also need to have the speed to keep up with them because it's all good. And can I just say thank you to Hawk's Eye View for agreeing with me. For the love of God, replace Reek. There's that perfect middle ground. You can be fast as anything. You can be an X wide receiver, run a 4.2, whatever it was, brilliant. But if you get beaten with hands and you are not experienced enough to know what routes are being run, you're erased. If you're not quick enough to catch up to elite wide receivers, you're erased from a game. So unless, I think, was it Ben put, he doesn't know if he's run the 40 at the combine for Azariah Thomas, I'm not sure. But that'd be my only issue with it.
Yeah.
But with that, I mean, I quite like that. You always manage to get me really excited for the draft. I love it when you start feeding me nuggets, mate. We'll put this up in our Discord as well, and at some point when I get the time past my working week, I'll put it up on socials as well for you guys to comment. You can follow us on pretty much every single social. Although we did get shadow banned on TikTok this week because I was posting too much. So we post clips of the show every week, and I got a bit overzealous one day, and I think I posted too many, and we went from hundreds of views to 30 odd. But Mitch, that's been brilliant. I've really enjoyed that. I like being enlightened, and I hope everyone else here, obviously, you'll all have your own sort of thoughts on who we could draft, but stick with us throughout this whole pre-draft sort of period because we will have some great guests giving us their draft crushes, and Mitch will be adding his as well. I think we've got Dan Viennes coming on from Seahawks Forever next week, haven't we?
On Friday,
what a way to kick off draft crushes. We've got Bryce Cooch for Hawks on Rundown. Jackson Bevans should be coming on as well. We've got just an array of guests as well. We've also got a UK NFL fan, the host of the Jacksonville Jaguars UK podcast as well, Mr. Jay Lawrence. If you're on social media, check him out. He's brilliant. If you're in the UK, he's fantastic. But he's going to be coming on as well to give us his draft crushes with a little bit of a twist, because if he's looking at it from a Jags point of view, it'll be nice for us to open our eyes to what other people are looking for. But apart from that, you can follow us on, are you ready? Big deep breath. X, Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok. We've got a Facebook group that you guys can like and follow and interact with us there. You can get in the Discord as well. That Discord, like I said, Mitch has already put the link up in the comments, which are down there, I think, for these videos. Come and join us. Fantastic people. A lot of the people that I've commented and just interacted with tonight are in our Discord, and they're a great bunch. You can like and subscribe, hit the notification bell on our YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, host of other podcasting platforms if you prefer audio. We're going to be coming at you every single week, pre-draft and then post-draft as well, where we'll be evaluating sort of who we've got. There we go. So Ben knows that Jay Lawrence, cool guy, Absolute Radio and Talk Sport presenter too, so he knows his stuff. But every single week we're coming back. We're looking to host with our Discord members a live pod through the first round of the draft, and it'll be a live party pod.
in the build up to the draft rather than a live reaction, right?
Yeah.
Because people's streams will mean we just get constant spoilers and it'll ruin it.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. But yeah, we'll be going live. We'll be having a bit of a party, getting some drinks going as well, which will be quite nice. I'm going to challenge members of our Discord and anyone joining us to see who can bring the fanciest drink.
Oof.
Oh yeah,
nice.
Get your cocktail shakers
I didn't
out.
know we were doing that. I start thinking about it already.
I thought about it today, and I was like, oh yeah, who's got the best cocktail maker? And then when we have our social, those people could come along as well. But I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone that's tuned in today. It's been so nice to see some new members or new viewers in the comments. You guys make this what it is. We're a podcast by 12s, for 12s, with 12s, and we couldn't do this with you. Without you guys. You make this for us every single time. Mitch, is there anything you would like to say to everyone?
A massive thank you. Anyone that wants to spend the off season chewing the fat with us, obviously Josh's already mentioned it, come and join the Discord. But it's such a good community of like-minded people. No one gets flamed for a crap opinion. We all think they're crap opinions, but we won't tell you. But yeah, absolutely come and chat. Put your mock drafts in there. Let us discuss your mock drafts. Love it.
Unless it's me or you that puts about, it's usually me that puts that opinion in, and then I get flamed and I get emojis and memes.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
I'm well respected in our Discord community. But yeah, this has been a brilliant one. Like I said, we're back on Friday with Dan VN. Make sure you tune in. If you hit that notification bell, you'll be notified as soon as it's up there. And yeah, we're looking forward to speaking to Dan. He's been on a few times. He's a great guy. So make sure you check out his pod if you haven't already. But I think we should sign off with our customary. Go Hawks, Mitch. What do you think?
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks. See you all next week. See you on Friday, guys. By all means, feel free to interact with us on any of our social medias. Peace.